We are here looking at how to care for people in crisis. Our two incredible guests, Michelle and Mark, are with us, both with incredible backgrounds in history in crisis management, people management, but not so much management, but gifting people with care and how to care for people better. We're going to learn about that today. Michelle's history, she's actually a funeral chaplain and a trainer for Chaplaincy Australia and for Lifeline. And of course, Pastor Mark is our special guest this week. Macquarie Life Church in Newcastle for 26 years, has planted 15 churches. Unbelievable, you know, it's all racking up. Yet more to come, thank you, Jesus. And of course, he's an avid kayaker, fisher, mountain bike racer, and of course, no, wait, there's more. Sports chaplaincy. So both in the area of chaplaincy, but really what we're about is loving God and loving people.
Yes.
And recognising that crisis happens to us, life happens to each one of us. What do we do to support others in those moments? So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got your notebooks ready, I'd love to introduce our guest, Pastor Mark. If you'd like to come forward. Thank you very much.
So good to be with you all. Thanks for coming. I heard someone say once that life is made up of the interruptions that happen to you while you're trying to do something else. So it's like that, especially in crisis and the things that are suddenly thrust upon us. So I'm not the expert in this. I've just had to survive my way through this as a school teacher and as a sports chaplain for 12 years and then as a pastor of a church for 25. And I'll share some of the stories. Michelle's kind of the key today. She's got all the right stuff that you need to know to get it right. But I can kind of share some of the stories and things that you can get exposed to. And we'll look at that. So before I came, I did speak to the lady in our church that trains all the chaplains in the Hunter for Newcastle. So she's pretty clued up. And so Michelle will probably cover this, but I'll just do this briefly. So these are the basic keys she gave to me, and I'll just start with those before I tell you some stories. So the first thing is to know our limits, because we all want to do the right thing in a crisis situation by others, but we've also got to know what our limits are, what you can and can't do, skill set, anointing, emotional energy. You need to be aware of your own family situation so you know how much you've got to give. So that was the first thing, know your limits. Second thing, know your resources. So if you're in ministry or leadership, it's worthwhile doing a bit of homework in advance so you know what the resources are. Resources within the church, within the community. Government provides a lot of resources as well, and what you can get your hands on online. I'm a bit lazy in this because I have a fair-sized church and a lot of leaders. I can pretty much just go to anyone on that line under me and they all know who to refer me to or who I can refer someone to get help, but you need to know what that is because that makes a big difference. Third thing is to know how to refer. That referral is a good thing. You're not abandoning someone if you refer them to someone else. It's even as a pastor with a lot of experience, it's still important that I say to people when they want to talk about something, I'm not a professional counsellor, we're just talking together. And then I can refer them on after that. Okay. She rang me back after we talked about it and she said this: in trauma, the human brain under grief-type stress does not cope with logical thoughts, so don't try and reason with them. Settle them, comfort them, and be there, and then try and get the help they need. I have got a thing with me on panic attacks, because one of the things I'm interested in is caring for the carers, because carers give out a lot and are largely forgotten about by some agencies and government departments. But that people get the help they need is really important, but the carers are a deal, because if they burn out, then there's less help to help other people. So I've got some good stuff on panic attacks. I've had burnout, so I know what it is to have a panic attack. I've been out of that for a while, but I still keep that in the back of my diary. So if I get too stressed or too much comes at me in 1 week, I find, because I have a big church, sometimes 3 tragedies can hit in a week, and I find, so this is just me personally, I cope with one well, I can stretch myself to cope with 2, but I always start to go under if there's 3 big things in a week, or say 3 deaths in a week or something like that. And so that's where I need to know where that is so I can stop and go, whoa, okay, easy. So if any of you want to see me after, I can take you through some of that. All right. So just some stories, because I need you to know that God does show up. When I've been driving to crisis situations in the car thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do when I get there? What am I going to say? But I find God is always already there. And usually it's the people there that will say something or tell you something, you think, right, he's here. I remember one of my elders' wives, her brother, had a bad mining accident. A grinder that they grind through the hard stone with, it bounced off the wall and hit him in the face and split his open right through to his brain. It had broken the water sac, but it stopped, I can't remember if it was a centimetre or a millimetre short of penetrating his brain enough to kill him. And so I'd been given that information, and can you come to the hospital? So I'm driving to the hospital quickly, but I'm wanting to slow down because I don't know what to do. So this is just an interesting one. When I walked into the room, he was there, like everything's bandaged and full of blood, and I can see one eye. And I knew him. I just felt to say, Stuart, are you, because she wanted me to kind of minister. I'm like, I don't know, if he needs ministry right now, or I might just pray for him. I felt to say to Stuart, are you cranky with God because this happened, or are you grateful to God because he has saved your life? And he said, I'm grateful to God. So out of that, we just talked a little bit, prayed. It was still early because it's not a time to hang around too long. So I moved out there and let the professionals take care of him and organised a counsellor through the hospital to be working with him, and then the sister could give me the feedback if I needed to go back in and do any follow-up. So that's just one. That was just to encourage you. So if God's there, his answer's going to be,
that's great.
Yeah, I'm grateful. If God's not there and he's cranky. So I don't try and talk him out of that, because remember, under stress, reason doesn't work. It's just so you still comfort, you still love, a hand on the shoulder. We're here for you. Is there anyone you'd like me to organise to come and see you? Another interesting one with soccer chaplaincy, just different again altogether, with the Newcastle Jets. This is going back a few years. One of the guys dislocated his elbow, one of the most painful injuries you'll get. So he's in the change room in tears, kind of star player. He's a young guy. He was in a lot of pain and I didn't know what to do. Just think quickly. I just felt to hold his hand. So footballers don't always like holding hand. It's not a masculine thing to do. But he was in so much pain, he squeezed it. And we held hands for a long time. The doctor was really clever. The doctor put the blood pressure thing around his elbow and pumped the pressure up, and it popped it back in. Now, as soon as it went back in, the kid felt relief, because you still have a lot of ligament pain, but the pain compared to it being out, it's like nothing. So he's like, oh, and he quickly lets go of my hand. He says to me, if you tell anyone, we held hands, I will personally punch you in. See, in a crisis situation can be this. The first day I'm a chaplain, I get introduced to the coach, John Cosmena, who I'm now really good friends with. He has coached, been assistant coach for Australia. But anyway, see, they're wild men, so they're not there to be nice to you as a Christian. So I get introduced to the coach, and he says, you're not going to get them. I'm going to teach them to get drunk, swear, and sleep with as many women as they can. So I'm like a duck. I know I have to stay calm. I know that bit. Underneath, I'm like, I thought I would get welcome to the club, So I didn't know what to do. So I'm a instinctive leader, so I just put my hand on my shoulder and said, Cosy, what I've got to give can help them be better placed too, but I just want to support you. He goes, okay, thanks. So he goes, I was testing you. I wanted to see what your attitude's like. We ended up very good friends, and the next club he went to, he asked for a chaplain because he liked the way we did it, but he wasn't a guy that wanted to see that quickly. So that's not a crisis situation for him, but it is for me. So, you kind of have to love and behave your way into people's trust, then they give you space. And later on he would ask me to address the players and things like that. So you just have to go slowly with those things. This was a big one that I learned, an interesting thing. One of my elders is a doctor, and he's the public health officer for Hunter. So that means if there's an outbreak of a disease, he's immediately in charge of all the hospitals and takes authority over everything. He works for the World Health Organization. He's the most intelligent man I've ever met. He drops dead, like he's in his early 40s, drops dead running in a park near my place. They don't know how long he's dead for, but 6 to 7 minutes is the critical time without oxygen. They figured out it's probably around 7 minutes. The first guy to come across him is also jogging, but he just happens to be the guy that runs accident and emergency at the John Hunter Hospital. He's the best resuscitator in our city. But he's with him for 20 minutes, CPR, mouth to mouth, doing it all himself, which is very exhausting, by the way, because like they go hard. And finally someone else runs along, he says, ring an ambulance. So anyway, long story short, he gets the paddles 14 times on the way to hospital to bring him back to life. His ribs are broken from being resuscitated for so long. He's burnt because of the paddles. He goes to hospital, they put him in an induced coma for 4 days. They think he will have bad brain damage when he wakes up. So Roz and I are asked to be there with the family when he wakes up. So that's pretty scary because they're highly regarded in the church, they're good friends, and we're with the wife and kids, and they don't know if Dad's going to wake up and have brain damage. So it's like, whoa. He wakes up, they give him something to help him wake up. So we're there. And he doesn't recognise his family. I'm thinking he's got bad brain damage. Anyway, the story is, over the next week, he recovered, and he eventually fully recovers. But his wife said an amazing thing. As the family gathered, when he was in a coma and they didn't know if he was going to live or die, the brother was a spiritual man, but geez, spiritual people can do some dumb things, but anyway. So someone in the family is going, everybody pray, good. No one say anything negative or express anything bad or do anything. So he just starts controlling everyone and their responses. But David's wife goes over and she does this. I thought this was brilliant. This is a great answer. She goes, so I am a realist with faith. If David dies, I will follow God. If David lives, I will follow God. So it just released everyone in the room. So I've got faith, and this is how I am. That was the biggest lesson I learned that day in staying calm. There's the only other one I'll tell you is this before I move on. We've got a guy we planted in Birmingham in England, and he married this girl who lost her first husband to a drug overdose. So I'm at home, I get the call to race to the hospital. He's dead. He's been dead for 45 minutes. I don't know what to do. I go, he's hooked up, he's got all the machines still all hooked up. There's one doctor in the room. And I go, I don't know what to do. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? You pray. So I pray, and I immediately feel the Holy Spirit say to me, call him back. So he's been dead 45 minutes. I call him back, and the heart monitor starts up. So first thing that happens is, in my flesh, I think, oh my God, I'm raising someone from the dead. But you don't let your flesh kick in those situations. So it's like, shut up. You've got to lead yourself, haven't you? The doctor comes over and says, please keep doing what you're doing, because that's the first response we've had. Anyway, the heart thing disappears and he dies. I later heard Rodney Howard-Brown, who was at a conference, say his brother died when they lived in Africa, and he and everyone in the family, they were a long way from help, and they were waiting for the ambulance, and they kept calling him back, and he would come back, and then he would die. They call him back, and come back, and it happened a number of times. He said, I think what happens is the Christian they got problems. It's like they've seen the Lord, they're saved as if by fire, like if I go home now, I haven't blown it so badly that it's like they seem to get this choice, and you call them back, they come back, but they don't, they want to stay there. So he said, I think sometimes people get a choice, and he said sometimes that's when you think they're going to come back to life and they don't. That's what happens. So that did me, that just helped me kind of put that to bed.
Wow, that's
But here's the thing. So I go out with the doctor and he tells the wife that her husband's gone. Oh man, that's... Anyway, so I never said a word to her. I tried to, but nothing would come out. I'd just cry and then she'd cry, and it was making it harder for us. So it was time to go home. So Ros and I just took her arm in arm, each side of her, walked out of the hospital with her so she wasn't on her own, put her in our car, got someone else to pick up her car, and just took her home to her mum. That sounds really basic, but she still thanks us for that. She said there was just this moment in me overcoming that. The most important thing to me was not to walk out of the hospital alone. How simple is that? So here's the thing. That yells that the most important thing I did that night was just hold a hand, really. That was it. It wasn't calling someone back to life. Like, that wasn't the ball game. It was just she needed someone to walk out of there with so she wasn't alone.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's just me going into situations, trying to learn from things and be sensitive to the situation. So God is already there. Some people, if it's someone you know, sometimes their trust in you is extremely high. And I've had older people in my church dying, family gathered around the bed. And I think I feel led to release them to go home. Really important to always check with the family before you do that. You know, do you guys feel like they've suffered enough? You can see them and go, are you happy if I just tell them it's okay to let go? And we do that. And with people that know us or have been churching a long time, where the trust is high, whenever we say it's okay to let go, or if you see Jesus standing there with his arms reaching out to you, you just let go and take hold. I've had a number of times where they've died within 5 minutes. It's like, wow, there's this thing that happens where people are near death, the principle release, especially from the family members, because sometimes they're hanging on for the family or things like that. So that's kind of quite a big privilege, and those things you don't jump around trying to look good at. That's very humbling, and has to be handled very sensitively with care, not just for the dying person, but the family as well. But that kind of thing done. All right. Just some things for your survival as carers. Okay. One of the qualifications for ministry is that you've been through the area that you... So I don't doubt that a lot of you are sitting here because you've experienced loss and you've seen tragedy and you've come through the other side, so you have a heart for other people that are going to go through that. One of the interesting principles that when you're ready to minister is when there's a scar. So, because on the way there's a wound, isn't there, through what you've been through. So when the wound's there and it's still bleeding, that's not the time to minister. You need to take care of yourself, get through stuff. But when the wound's a scar, you end up with this incredible sensitivity to other people that have been through the same thing, and it sort of ends up becoming your qualification for ministry. It's really what's called being used for the glory of God. It's just, I can't even explain it well enough. It's just how the kingdom works. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So your survival's important. Okay, so as a pastor who could easily get, a lot of calls and just be out all the time looking after the grieving, and while I have a heart for that, I can't run a church and do all that ministry as well. So I have to have people trained, etc. But this will sound harsh, but I think it's an important principle. In 1 Timothy 5, it talks about how it's a person's responsibility to look after their own family. So something I've learned is this. there's a crisis situation, especially if there's been loss or someone's dying. I just can't believe I'm saying it, but anyway, I've learned it. I don't try and get there too early. It's really important if family are with them, that family get their time, and family are doing the ministry, and family are facing what they have to face. Some people have said to me over the years, my mum's dying, I can't face it, you look after her. And I go, whoa, let's just sit down, and if they're a Christian, I'll take them to Timothy and go, no, you've got a responsibility here. So you go, and we'll come in and back you up, tomorrow or in a couple of hours' time. Or even this one, some people have an anointing for this, some don't. My family members die, we want you at the bedside with us. I'm not good at always at just going through the whole waiting at the hospital 9 hours, carrying everyone's grief, trying to minister, waiting for the person to die, because I care and it really affects me, and I tend to carry it, and it can take me months to get over that, and it affects me so much I find it hard to preach because I'll just start crying. And so I get up to preach, the whole church goes into grief and we don't get anywhere. The people come to church for the good news and to have life. So we do grieve as a church when we need to, but you can't make every Sunday someone's lost a loved one, let's grieve again, because if every Sunday's grief, the church will implode. So there's some whole deals there with how those things, which makes you appreciate your team, who should be there in a certain situation. And you have to know, this is know your limitation. I don't have 9 hours to give, but I'll go around there afterwards. The other thing I find really hard is if someone's died and you're organising the funeral, if the whole family's gathered to organise the funeral, it can take hours. And they're fighting and they're arguing. So I've learned to go, you organise what you want with your family, and I'll send one of our pastors in just to get the basics down, and then I'll come and fine tune it with you. And I usually just do it with one family member, because it's like, it just can be disaster in the middle of things. So this is just kind of knowing your limitations, protecting yourself. Beware of carrying too much grief. One of the hardest ones I ever had was a baby that was born without kidneys, and they said the baby lived 5 days. Mum and Dad fasted and prayed, the baby died, and they said we killed our baby because we didn't have enough faith. That was so tough. So after, working on their theology a little bit, assuring them that they didn't kill their baby and doing that, I stayed really close to them for about 2 weeks, way too close, way too involved, should have referred because this was early in the piece. So when I went back to just having to do my normal stuff and look after my own family and run a church, they were really grieved with me because they thought it was going to be like that forever. You'll always be there for us. We can call you whenever we want. We'll just come to your house if we feel sad, or you'll drop everything and come to us. So they got ticked off. We got through it. But you know what I mean? Like that immaturity in people is tricky to deal with as well. So hence the thing of referring to the right person at the right time is really important. So knowing your resources will protect you. Your Sabbath's really important. You have to know where that day or time is in the week where you're going to get time to yourself, because when you're really stressed out and you've carried a lot of grief and you've given out emotional energy, you'll get through the next couple of days if you know in 4 days' time I've got a day off or half a day off, because you have to do mundane things to recharge your soul. I see pastors sometimes burn out completely because they're in burnout, and to get over the burnout they go and have an adventure holiday, travel all over Europe, a different city every day. I'm thinking, go to a resort and put your feet up, or just get in the bush where there's no one there and turn your phone off and do nothing. Walk around, chuck some rocks, do some fishing, and when you feel bored, that means your energy is starting to return. So that's how you get over it. You stop. And when you stop, the first day you feel worse because you realise how tired you were. And that's where sometimes people, if they don't have a big enough break, they'll explode or they have a breakdown because they're so tired they have a break and they feel worse instead of better. And the enemy goes, it's always going to be like this, and it's not. Have you ever seen that in your own holiday at the end of the year? It takes sometimes a week to unwind, and the first 2 days you get worse, but then a little bit better, a little bit more energy, and then it starts to come back. But the boredom's a good sign because that means your energy's back. That's how you judge when your energy's come back.
Yeah.
Okay. That's about all. How am I going for time? Does anyone want to ask any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Just some tips on the wisdom to discern when do you go hard with the prayer for healing versus when do you just, let it be?
Yeah. I don't know. And sometimes ask them what they want. That's probably usual. If something seems really Holy Spirit led, I'll go, are you okay if I pray for help? Or sometimes the family will ask you to do that. And I sometimes say to them, I don't have a lot of results praying for healing, but I do have good results. Sometimes, there's improvement, especially with cancer. That thing of God give 6 months extra. But even with that, like my own mum and sister, we had amazing answers to prayer like that. But then I learned this. You have to be responsible praying for that, because 6 months extra sometimes will mean that they're going to suffer more at the other end because they've linked it. So even that is, it's not just automatically pray for healing. It's like, Holy Spirit, you lead me, you know the situation. I just try and ask the Holy Spirit. If I don't know, I just ask the family. I try and work off what their wishes are. Do you want to say anything about that one?
I think we need to focus on what healing means. It doesn't just mean a physical, okay, the cancer's gone. It could be restoring their soul. It could be restoring their joy. It could be restoring their faith. It could be restoring a relationship.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can mark the whole idea of we prayed for them and they didn't get healed and they died. Well, I think if they've gone home to Jesus, that's the healing I want.
Yeah.
So we've got to be careful we don't just frame what healing looks like for that person. And I love the way you said, ask them, what do they need? And you can pray. You can sneakily pray whatever you need to pray and be led by the Holy Spirit. But be careful what healing means. It's great. It's fantastic.
Very good. Thank you. Let me just give you this. This is kind of the last thing I'll share. There's a Japanese art called kintsukuroi, where they'll take a broken pot, like a pottery thing, and they mend it with gold or silver lacquer, like expensive gold or silver lacquer. So when they finish with it, the pot is there and all the cracks and breaks are highlighted, but they're highlighted in gold silver. And if you've ever seen some of the work, it looks amazing. And sometimes that's like almost an example of what God is doing with people's lives. We hate it, and on my mercy, so my heart breaks when people suffer. I've been around long enough to see the other end, that they'll eventually get to a day, and it's hard to believe if you're in the middle of suffering, but they eventually get to a day they say, I wouldn't change anything. Whoa. Or with your own life, if you look at some of the pain you've been through and things, but God's healed and God's blessed and you've been able to help others through that. Mum's last day dying of cancer, she said, I can cope with this if someone else benefits from it. And that's the heart of people. That's kintsukuroi. It's it. God knows how to piece back together in a beautiful way. And that's why testimonies are so beautiful. I appreciated that man last night who stood there. He didn't say anything. Someone else was able to say, this man had been in prison, this man committed crime, this man was a drug addict, this man was an alcoholic, this man did crime, and he was prepared to be the sinner so that the power of God could be displayed so someone else can get help.
Yeah,
And it's very powerful when people are humble enough to tell you the authentic story and look bad for the sake of the gospel, because it makes you love them more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I just felt so much love for that guy. It always has the opposite effect. And when you share authentically, if you've shared a weakness or a sin that you're through now and it helps someone, there's power in that, and they will love you for it. You think everyone will reject you for it? No. They will love you for it. Okay. Any other questions? And I'll hand to Michelle. Yes, Diane?
What's the best way to support someone through like marriage breakdown?
Yeah, support anyone through anything. I'll just say one thing, and I'll get you to answer this. My wife's going to talk to about this because my eldest daughter had a marriage breakdown. It's just love them and be there. But anyway, stuff will come. When my mum and my sister died really closely together of cancer, it was tough. And I went okay, but there was no. So one of my elders is the senior surgeon at the Mater Hospital. So I've got plumbers and painters too, but he was just another surgeon guy. But he was really good. He just texted me. I didn't want to talk to people. I just wanted to be with my own family. Because you're on church, you're with people all the time, and in grief, I just wanted to be with my own family. And he figured that out. So he would just send me a text every second day. Thinking of you, praying for you, hope you're okay today. If you want to go out, let me know. Just little texts like that. It's like someone knew and cared, and that was all I could cope with, and it was nice. It respected the space. Anyway, funnily enough, that just really helped me. With my daughter, it was like, don't jump in the mood, no. So she, at first, because she was angry about what had happened, things were shared with anger. We go, hey, you don't have to go home. We're not even suggesting that. We'll just support you how you want to be supported. I think asking the question is a really big deal. We do a bit helping Aboriginal people. And one of the Aboriginal elders shared with me, this is really interesting, why asking is important, and I'll finish with this. Before 1967, Aboriginal people were considered flora and fauna in our constitution, so it was a big offence to them. It was really unfair on them. And funnily enough, we used to have on the back of our coins in Australia, flora and fauna. In the 90s, a white person in government, and I'm not knocking because I used to do this sort of thing, said, let's respect the Aboriginal people by putting a famous Aboriginal person on the back of one of our coins. So the government did that, and it was incredibly offensive to the Aboriginal people because they read it. They're reminding us that we're flora and fauna because only flora and fauna goes on the back of the coin. Why did that happen? Just because no one thought to ask them, when this out there, we just, dominate and go, I know what'll be good for you. Boom, there it is. And like, I need to say, it's really important to ask, and I didn't used to be good at that, but asking really respects their space and their intelligence and their heart. Thanks, Michelle.
That was so good. I was so into it, I forgot I had to get up. So I'm unashamedly very chaplaincy based. So I don't know if you know a lot about what chaplains are or what they do, but they're people like you and me that come alongside people, not come over people. They come alongside them in their time of crisis. So a crisis can be different things to different people. I had one this morning. I had run out of chocolate. My prayers were answered. That can be a crisis. We have had people on the phones at Lifeline ring up and they don't know what cat food to get for their cat. Now we think, really, that's your biggest issue. For that person, if they're stuck and they can't make a decision, that is a crisis. Then we have a crisis through to somebody has lost somebody. Somebody has... there's an accident or call I took last week. She just found out her daughter is not only taking drugs but a drug dealer. Crisis means different things to different people, and it's always, the crisis varies in one sense, but we sometimes want to categorise it. If you've been to the doctor and they say, what's the pain like between 1 and 10? We sometimes can do that. With crisis or even sin, we go, well, that's this or that's that, or the murder or whatever. And yes, there's legal implications for some things, but sin is sin. It still separates us from God. And crisis to somebody, they need our help, and it's coming alongside. So yes, it matters to some extent what the crisis is, but the application is still the same. So I don't know if you've ever been to a first aid class. So this is first aid. So we're not going to do, whole heart transplants, but we're going to teach you how to come alongside people when they are hurting, and that's what we're going to do. So it's coming alongside with dignity and respect. And again, if they share their world, they are vulnerable to you, how we respond is critical. We know by research, if somebody shares something significant and they have that first response of shock or anger or that can't be right or whatever, they're very likely not to go on and get further help. We know that particularly with domestic and family violence, if somebody shares that, and this is not just stuff outside the church. We sometimes categorise inside and outside the church. I don't believe we should be thinking that way, but just for our language today, this is stuff that can happen inside our church and amongst church family as much as what we say outside in the world. So particularly in Christian circles, if somebody shares to you about domestic and family violence or sexual abuse, how we respond to that is so integral, because whether they go on and seek help, and particularly I think in Christian circles, we don't do that as well as we could. So there's some rooms for growth. So hands up if you're in full-time Christian ministry. Okay, hands up if you're a Christian. It's the same thing.
Yes, that's right.
It wasn't paid.
Very cool.
So if you are a follower of Jesus, wherever you go, it says, surely goodness and mercy will follow you. I believe that's what we leave behind. I believe that's what we leave. So if you work in a work setting in terms of a workplace, if you're at church or if you're in a school, wherever you go, you leave goodness and mercy for the people that are around you. I actually like to think we're all like tea bags. So when you're with somebody in hot water, you change the atmosphere just by being present.
Yeah.
Okay? And sometimes we are so caught up in, oh my goodness, what do I say? Now that's normal and that's natural, but don't ever underestimate the power and the presence of being there. So chaplaincy was explained to me like there's a burning building and we run into it when everyone else is running out. Don't mishear me, I am not saying run into a burning building. I'm saying that often when there's a crisis, there's a scenario, there's a death, there's something going on, chaplaincy leans into when most people want to lean away. And that's what I think we all do as people that love Jesus. So you have your own thoughts and beliefs and skills and experiences. Some still have wounds, some will have scars. But that is the stuff that God can use for you to come alongside people. So it's amazing. It's like Mark and I, really, we did talk, but as if we did it. But I was going to refer to Mark chapter 6 that you talked about in the offering of the feeding of the 5,000. And particularly, I hadn't noticed this before, where it said the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces of bread and fish. And the message says the disciples gathered 12 baskets of leftovers. So what does this tell us? Well, besides being biblical for leftovers, there it is right there. Yes, there's biblical for leftovers. But it's that sense of the disciples were gathering the broken and the leftover. So who in your world is broken and potentially left over, who is not noticed?
Wow.
So this is inside the church and outside. Again, I don't mean to categorise. I just don't want us to be thinking inside, outside the church. I am very much outside person, sorry. But it is that whole sense of everybody matters to Jesus, and I think it is the ministry of Christians to gather and be there for the broken, and whether that's relationship breakdown, trauma, drugs, alcohol, unemployment, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is, it's coming alongside them and they matter to Jesus. So the people that day weren't out looking for church. They just went and they met Jesus. So our whole heart is for people to meet Jesus, not to bring them to church. I want them to come to church, but I want them more to meet Jesus. And sometimes that may be the opportunity to pray with somebody and lead them in the name of Jesus and you know, have that sinner's prayer thing. But it may be that when I walk away, my presence of Jesus being there, that marks them. That is every drop of water adds to the flow in the stream. So that encounter I have had with them just because I was there, I don't know what that's going to mean for them down the track. And sometimes we're so busy having the Christian marker point of, you know, they got saved, and we can look in a very, I guess, not that eternal perspective. So those people who just had an ordinary day and had food, which I think it's biblical to have lunch together, and they met Jesus. So it's well and good to talk about how to come alongside. So let me give you a few things. I like to start with what not to do, because I think that's easy to then work out what we can do. These may sound really simple, but it doesn't have to be significant. Okay, so do not judge. Of course, no, why would we judge? When someone shares their stuff with us, whether we mean to or not, we are thinking, oh, I'm so glad that that's not my world. I'm so glad that I've never had a drug addiction. I'm so glad that that's, you know, not my family. And that's okay to some extent. But that's going to affect how you are going to sit with them, how they're going to share with you. And that whole sense of coming alongside and not over is so important in how we're with them. And do not judge. It's not just in our attitude. It's just that whole, you know, if somebody from the church tells you they've got a struggle with pornography, what's our response to that? There are a lot of people in my chaplaincy and aged care. There was a lot of people that still love God, but they've been hurt by church in some way, shape or form. I want to be a part of somebody's testimony for good and not bad. I met a Christian, and yeah, that's why I'm not one. You know, we don't want to have that. And we need to be careful when we're to be somebody who knows Jesus, that a whole judgment thing. I love the way you said, you know, someone saying, oh, you can't say that. When Caleb, that's right, last Sunday he said, God wants your beautiful, was it your beautiful, not your ugly lies, your beautiful truth. You know, in the sense, you've got to be honest with God. It's okay. And we need to give people permission. It's not about position. It's giving them permission to go, I'm struggling with God. You know, that person was able to reconcile. Some people's crisis can be a faith crisis. And sometimes in Christian circles, we're so busy going, no, don't say that we don't allow them to have that time. And if Jesus can weep at a grave, we need to give people permission for whatever it is to let that out. So being judgmental is not just that I'm glad it's not me. It's just being able to sit with them. And one way that I keep myself there as much as I can is to remember what I was saved from. Oh, well, it wasn't drugs or alcohol addiction or whatever, but I had life before I met Jesus. So it's not that testimony of all the things. It's like there was a time in my life I didn't know God. There was a time that I have. And when Joseph was in prison and he was talking to that guy, and then the guy got out, he said, oh, don't forget me when you get out. Oh, no, of course not. It's easy for us to forget about the people still in captivity. It's easy for us when we've been walking with the Lord for quite some time to forget what it's like to be bound, and whether that be drugs, alcohol, relationships, or crisis in faith, whatever it is. Don't forget what you've been set free from. Don't try to fix it or take over. The crisis may be a new thing, or it might be something they've been struggling with for a long time. We need to learn to sit with them in the dark, to sit with them in their pain. And it's not yours to fix. And it may not even be theirs to fix. It may not be something they have done. And it's something that we need to just learn how to be with them. And we need to empower them to find their feet and walk in their direction. Because Mark made a great point about that couple. You know, he was thinking, you know, this was a limited time that he was going to invest, and we can set off that precedent, and they think, great, this is how it's going to be. So that fixing and taking over, we want to be the scaffolding around them and support them while they're rebuilding. Now that may be in practical ways, like walking the lady to the car, it may be getting her a cup of tea, it may be mowing their lawn. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be that we take over. And often we think we have to have the answers. Why would God do this? Why would this happen? We don't have the answers, and sometimes we've got to learn to mean well with our mouth shut. Some of the most profound things I have ever said were without words. Just being able to sit there, just being able to be with them as they're going, I don't understand, why would God do this? There is nothing you can say at that moment. As you said, with their trauma, their whatever, they're not going to take it in anyway. But they will remember how you made them feel. They'll remember that you were sitting with them in their pain. Don't try to carry them. You're not to assume responsibility for them. Remember your roles and boundaries. Oh, of course, Shelley, you mean like in a work setting. No, your roles and boundaries are in friendships, people within church, within ministry. You need to know where your stuff is. Have you ever been to the airport and you've got, I wouldn't think about picking up somebody else's bag. I never realised how many black suitcases there is, but I wouldn't pick up someone else's bag. I'm responsible for my stuff, so don't try and carry theirs, don't pick it up. And
That's great.
yeah, so, and you can then intentionally form codependency. So they start relying on you. We want them to rely on Jesus. Now, whether they know Jesus or not is actually not the point here.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to find that anchor in Jesus and not us.
Yeah.
Don't ask lots of questions. Well, that sounds a bit weird, but sometimes we can, if somebody's sharing their story, we go, but what about it, and what happened then, and we don't realise we turn it into a Jeopardy episode. We need to just sit, and if they want to share more, they will. The only time we need to ask questions, which I'll get onto it, is if there's safety issues for them or their children, or there's something like that. The rest of the time, let them share what they want and at their pace. The fact that Pastor Libby's in here, I hope I won't get stoned. This is my next point. Don't quote scripture or say platitudes. Hang on, let me explain.
Go for
At the time when somebody is in that grief, to quote all things work together, I would want to lay hands on you too. It's not the time. If they know Jesus or not, that's wonderful. But they would already know that scripture. When they're standing at the graveside of their son, they don't need to hear that scripture. Put your hand on their shoulder if appropriate. Stand there with them. You'll have time later to talk about that scripture. You'll have time to say, in time, or you'll have another baby, or whatever it is. But we don't need to say it then and there. Okay, so we don't say don't quote scripture. Again, keep it in context.
Yeah.
Okay, so what to do? Listen. Wow, that's deep. It's not as easy as you think. For somebody telling their story, you're thinking, oh, this and that. And your own story can be a great strength when you're coming alongside somebody, but it can also hinder your vision. So be careful. They may share and you go, I've been there. That was your story. You can have identical twins share the same story and it will be different. So your story you can draw from, but don't then assume that that's how it's going to go. So allowing them to tell their story can just give them that sense of you're a soft place to fall. You're not going to judge them. You're not going to say, well, please don't say that, and you're a Christian and you shouldn't say that and you shouldn't think that. Just letting them talk, and sometimes that may be that they swear, they might get angry. And it's uncomfortable, but that's okay. You've got to learn to sit with that because God's got broad shoulders. You need to just go let that out. I know on the phones there will be lots of languages and words I don't even know what they mean, but that's okay. It's being able to be present and to listen, and that can be just like ointment to their soul. Being able to actually openly say what they need to say. Love. I thought love was a good one. Love sees the value in people made in God's image. Whether they know Jesus yet or not, it's actually not an issue for us when we come alongside. So I've got $50 here. Would anyone like it? Yeah, oh, great. Normally people look at me. So what if I just, I'll just scrunch it up and then I'm just going to tread on it. Would you still like it? Yeah. Why? The value has not changed because of its condition. When somebody is in crisis, whether they know Jesus or not, they think their current condition determines their value. Their value is determined by God. Our idea is to come alongside and love them where they're at now. Now, we know after hearing Shane the other night that their past doesn't determine their future. They may not know that just now, but we are going to be with them. And love is just so integral. And I believe without God's love, you can't love people. There's some people that may be a bit hard to love, including ourselves. Remind. One of our things is to remind people of their value and worth, not their current condition. It's easy to doubt in the dark what you know to be true in the light. People can forget who they are and whose they are. Again, it's not the point if they know Jesus or not, it's to remind them that they matter to God. Remember the leftovers. We are to gather people. We are to come alongside them, and we need to gently remind them that those circumstances don't define them. And they do have a choice how they respond. And we can show them and empower them with that. So, yeah, it's just so important to just remind people of that. Refer. I love the way Mark talked about that. Refer. You are not their saviour or the expert. No, it's quite a shock for me too. But you need to get help. So your pastor is obviously a great place, but it's really good to have some local knowledge of what's around. If you don't, jump on the Lifeline website, ring Lifeline. That'll give you referrals. If you're going, well, there's somebody's experiencing this, something local, we've got this amazing database we can look up and find something local. Because there's no point going, oh, I've heard this great service in Sydney. And make sure it's an appropriate service. It's what they want. It's not you going, this is what I think you should do. It's asking them, would you like me to help with that or help them with it? Because if you've got someone particularly who is feeling so downtrodden and you come along and think, well, I know what to do, I'll grab them by the hand and I'll take them here, you just reinforce that they can't do it for themselves. But you think you're helping. Of course I'm helping. Well, yes and no. You are then maybe creating them to be codependent upon you. But next time there's another crisis, what are they going to do? Who are they going to go to? You need to build the resilience in them, is what Ron's talked about. And this is my final thing to say what we need to do, and I'm very passionate about, and Mark's already touched on it, refill. So when you've been on the aeroplane and the hostesses, after they do their little dance and the exits and the whole thing, what do they talk about? The oxygen. Put your own oxygen mask on first. You cannot help anybody when you have nothing for yourself. So I like to say, what makes your heart smile? What things do you enjoy doing? What things do you like? Because whether you have a career in coming alongside people or you're just helping your family or your friends, there is a big difference between a lighthouse and a shooting star. We don't want to do this brilliantly for 6 months and burn out. A lighthouse needs to have its oil. You need to know where to get your oil from. Chocolate is one source. There are other things you need to know, because as you're pouring out to people, you need to constantly putting back into you. Now, obviously, that's going to be, hopefully, your own relationship with God and what you're learning from Him and connected to the vine. Because apart from Him, you can do nothing. And my prayer is, don't even let me try. Don't let me try. So now you're all just super excited and you want to all do chaplaincy training. Isn't that great? Because Albert Crucis, we're going to be running a course out here next year, and also through the academy there's opportunities. And if you're just going, oh, I just love that, I want to be a Lifeline volunteer, then I also have brochures. We've got our Dubbo. We're launching that in October, so anyone that's looking at becoming a Lifeline volunteer, People have asked, are you going to pray with people on the phone? No, you're not, out there. But you can be a source of help and support. And so we took over 1 million calls in a year.
Wow.
1,800 last month. Now, again, I don't want Lifeline to go out of business, but I would love to see Lifeline go out of business.
Yeah.
That the church is there, that people feel that they can go to the church for help, that they know they're gonna have Christian people that are not going to hassle them, not going to condemn them, they're gonna come alongside them and empower them, whatever that is, So seriously, there is some brochures, I think we've got around on chaplaincy, so there are courses out here, and we can give you some more skills on how to come alongside. So is there any questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a question. Is there any signs to know that you're approaching a crisis the wrong way?
In terms of you're with somebody and there's a crisis and you're not sure, is that what you're meaning?
They are not responding to how you're trying to help them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be that your idea of help is not what they need. So it could be just pulling back a bit and going, okay, what do they want? And if they are able to articulate that at the time, that's the best place to start. Sometimes if they're in just deep trauma, they're not going to be able to think. And so the practical things, food, water, making sure they've had some sleep if you can, depending on obviously what's going on. But if people are sort of just going, and you're going, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, firstly, you shouldn't be giving the advice. Have you thought about, would you like to try? I wonder what would happen if, rather than you need to go to the doctor, get a referral and whatever, it's asking them. So if they're just sitting there nodding, well, yeah, okay, that's probably your first clue. Yeah, you're talking at them and not with them and what they're needing at that moment. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
How do you care for someone who you are very close to, who is not well and does not want anybody to know?
Good question.
It is a hard one, making sure that you keep your boundaries in terms of time for you. So if it's someone that is, very close and you can't leave the house or whatever you need to make sure you have time for you, your own oxygen. Encourage them to maybe share it with one person if it needs to be a medical person or another person that they trust and in time. And, gently in time, it might be just a time thing, but it could be a sense of, look, this is too much and I really want you to get the help you need, but I can't give it all to you. So who would you like that we bring in to help? Okay, so it's asking and it's getting permission, but it's also recognising you can't sustain this. It's not doable. It doesn't matter how, I just thought, oh no, I can love and I can do all this, but you're not helping them. You're not doing the best by them as much as by you.
Is it a good idea to try to not be the only person during that situation?
That's where the referral comes into. So whether it be your pastor or another friend or whatever, but with their permission and not just breaking confidences. The only time you break confidentiality if it's a child mandatory reporting or a safety issue. So the main thing with safety issues or children or suicide, somebody might say to you they're thinking of suicide, go to help or get help. That's it, that's what you need to remember. So ring somebody or ring 000 or take them to get help.
Dealing with crisis and stuff like you and Mark do constantly, how important and how often do you think you need to be able to debrief with somebody or download things that, like Mark said, that will build up over a period of time?
So I have to have what's called supervision. I think it's a terrible name, but it's actually like an industry thing where I have to download. But I've learned to recognise, I call them red light indicators. On the dashboard of your car, you ever had a red light come on? How long can you ignore it for before something happens? You need to recognise your red lights. So you're getting tired, you're more frustrated, you're cranky, whatever it is. that can be a real key that you're getting burnt out, that you're tired. So it's being, again, proactive rather than reactive, and that's why I really think every single day you need to do something to make your heart smile. So, and then have that accountability. So whether it be somebody, a pastor or clinical supervision, whatever it is. And I think anyone, it doesn't matter just, you know, the so-called frontline people, anyone that's caring for someone, it costs. There's a price involved in loving and caring for people. So, and it's okay to go, you know what, that's enough for today. Turn the phone off, put yourself in the diary.
Yeah.
Take yourself out for coffee.
Very good.
Nice coffee.
Time for you. Nice coffee, yeah, that's right, chocolate, okay.
Sometimes, just recently, I've been through people who've been going through big change in their lives, not necessarily a medical situation, or somebody else who's actually lost someone in their family. And a couple of times I've sort of said, look, if you want to yell at somebody, ring me up.
Right.
I'd rather than ring me up and yell at me and I can go away and forget it and someone close to them. I mean, obviously not necessarily every situation is going to work, but would that be?
I think that's awesome. Can I clone you, please? Giving
Very
them
good.
permission is really important, and I think particularly when it comes to, because I do funerals, and people, I happen to do funerals of people who don't know Jesus. Well, sometimes they're actually easier because they understand the process a little bit more than Christians. So standing there going, at least you know they're with Jesus as your son's going into the ground. You know what, that's not helpful right now. Of course they know we're their Jesus, but I want them here with me. And giving Christians permission to go, this just hurts. It's really hard. That's okay. Okay, yes.
When you're caring for someone through something intense, whatever it may be, it can develop a sense of intimacy, I guess, in your relationship with them. But then when they get better, they don't need you as much, and it can be very tempting to feel a bit rejected then when they do move on to their other usual relationships. You may feel a bit used, but that's certainly my experience. Have you got any tips on how to deal with that?
Well, I guess if we had have known in hindsight to make sure you weren't their only source, if that was possible, and to be selfish in the best way to make sure that you're only giving them like the amount of time that you can give them. And sometimes God will give you a season where He wants you to lean into Him, and it's easier to lean onto other people. And sometimes He will say, no, don't go see them, pull back, start to sort of, you know, let them be able to do their things. Like when your children were learning how to walk and they fell over, think, oh, well, that's it, I won't let you walk again. You know, you just let them, you know, get back up and build that resilience that Ros was talking about. So it's just that gentle, making sure that you're there and supporting, but they're not leaning on you to the point where, you know, it's that unhealthy thing. And so making sure you're looking after you. So I want to talk about that later, but, you know, you need to now nurture yourself in that.
Jill, I've just got a question. Where did you get your blouse from?
I can't help you with that. Thank you, Michelle. Mark, I'll see you later. How great was that?
Yeah.
Let's share our appreciation.